voters in Alabama, they want to see the Make America Great Again agenda being pushed through, more so than they do these allegations going back and forth, the he said, she said.
The most destructive wildfire raging in Southern California just got bigger, scorching nearly 250,000 acres. That is larger than the city of New York.
Give Pittsburgh the lead. Clutch again. 39-38.
McCoy into the end zone, and Buffalo wins it.
New York City, it's the world's #1 cable morning news show. Come on in.
Come on in. It's a Monday morning. We're 2 weeks away from Christmas,
We've
basically.
set the table, we got the coffee, we're ready.
And by the way, that is Stephen Ainsley's philosophy. I'm here for the party, and I'm here to do work, so that's where we're different.
Let's pretend today's Friday.
All right, but do you feel like every day is Friday?
I do, actually. I do like my life. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's a general statement.
Do you not?
Yes.
We are working at a news channel, and luckily there's a lot of news. So we're delighted that you would join us today because we've got a great story to tell you all about coming up in just a moment. You're going to hear that. But first, our top political story. All eyes are on the state of Alabama, one day before their special election for the U.S. Senate.
Republican candidate Roy Moore has President Trump on his side as he's denying all the sexual misconduct claims, and his opponent is launching brand new attacks.
Yep, Griff Jenkins is live in Washington, D.C. with what is at stake, win or lose. Hey, Griff.
Hey, good morning, guys. It is coming down to the wire in the heart of Dixie as Alabama voters are waking up to this robocall from President Trump making a final push for Roy Moore.
Get out and vote for Roy Moore. His vote is our Republican Senate, and it's needed. We need Roy to help us with the Republican Senate. We will win, and we will make America great again.
Moore, who's been running as an outsider, was noticeably absent from the campaign trail this weekend and avoided reporters, but called into a radio show defiantly denying allegations against him and attacking the Republican establishment who refused to support him.
The Republican establishment actually wants Jones in there because they think they can beat him in 2 years without a contest. And, of course, the Democrats want Jones in there for their vote.
Meanwhile, Jones barnstormed the state with outside help from establishment Democrats like New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, and he took a shot at Moore, accusing him of hiding.
What kind of public servant hides and goes only into enclaves and doesn't address the media? I'm going to be as accessible after this election as I am now.
And Jones began running ads featuring Alabama's other senator, Republican Richard Shelby, who said he wasn't voting for Moore, writing in another Republican candidate. But Moore maintains a slight lead in the polls, guys, and tonight plans a massive rally featuring none other than Steve Bannon. So it's going to be exciting to watch.
Wow, interesting, Griff. Thanks so much. It's exciting to watch because the president knows for all practicality purposes he needs that vote. I mean, with 51 votes, it makes everything very, very tough. In the last year, in the last of his first 2 years before the midterms. However, you wonder in the big picture if the sexual allegations will actually allow the Republican Party to put their backs against the wall for the midterm elections, as if he would be the poster child for sexual misconduct.
Yeah, we'll find out. Tomorrow's the big vote.
We will. We got Pastor Jeffers coming up very shortly from Dallas. He says there are a lot of Republicans in Alabama who would like another choice, but are going to vote for this particular guy, Judge Roy Moore. They're going to hold their nose and do that because they're worried about the issues.
Steve, that's a great point, because if this came out and he still beat Luther Strange, if this happened in the primary process, that's one thing. But it came out after the primary, so the people of Alabama are hostage to these candidates.
Well, and according to what Griff just said, the people of Alabama, by a slight, 3-4 points right now, are favoring Roy Moore.
In the last poll.
We'll see.
Meanwhile, you know, over the last few days, it's been the president versus the press.
Yeah, he is fed up with all the fake news. This was his latest tweet.
tweet. You know, over the weekend he was talking about all the fake news from several networks, and so he's done with it. He said very little discussion of all the purposely false and defamatory stories put out this week by the fake news media. They are out of control. Correct reporting means nothing to them. Major lies written, then forced to be withdrawn after they are exposed. A stain on America.
So what's he talking about? Well, the Washington Post had to apologize. One of their reporters, Dave Weigel, he had put out a picture and it said that place down in
Florida.
Yeah, in Pensacola was not filled up, but it was indeed. And then Brian Ross got suspended for a week, and then CNN had to clarify and correct the story. Molly Hemingway says the real scandal is how the media are continuing to push the Russia thing.
This is the pattern for so many of these stories. I mean, this is not the first time it's happened to CNN. It's not even the first time it happened this week that a major story blew up like this. But at some point, you actually have to start asking, maybe the real scandal is how the media fell for this Russia-Trump collusion narrative and how they've been involved in perpetuating it.
We should say that Weigel said, I put that on my private Twitter. I apologize to the president. I didn't put it to the Washington Post. You just wonder why would he do it to begin with, because it's inaccurate. It was way before the actual event
hours
happened.
Before the president showed up, and he showed the arena half full.
So everybody makes mistakes. The only thing I would love to see is a report for the president that's wrong. If one of these organizations came out and said a story that was too positive for the president and had to walk back and say it should have been more negative, I apologize, then I would see fair and balanced erroneous behavior.
Sometimes, as we know, being in the press for a very long time, you got to wait until you got a couple of more people who have verified a story before you rush out with a smoking gun.
I do think it's more than an honest mistake. If you know the president's going to be speaking in a few hours, then you post the picture of what the arena looks like. It's like taking a picture before the team comes out of the NFL, like hours before, and saying no one's packing the stands. You can't do that. It's inaccurate.
I agree.
All right, in other news, the Deputy AG, Rod Rosenstein, not Steen, Rosenstein, he was appointed as special counsel back in May after Jeff Sessions recused himself. You remember that. Well, now he's going to be testifying on Capitol Hill. It happens this Friday in a few days in front of the House Judiciary Committee.
Right. He's the Deputy Attorney General. And here's the thing that's going on right now. There are so many reports from the Republican side of the aisle that Robert Mueller's special counsel team is riddled with people from the political left. You got Andrew Weissman, one of his top deputies. He went to Hillary's victory party. You got Peter Strzok, who we told you about last week. He wrote those anti-Trump emails that he exchanged with his lover. There he is, Peter Strzok right there. He's also the guy who edited out gross negligence. You got Janie Rhee, who used to be in the DOJ. She represented the Clinton team and the foundation, and it goes on, and it looks like it's stacked with a murderer's row of people on Hillary's side.
Christopher Wray was appointed by the president to run the FBI. It doesn't mean he goes to the president's agenda, but he's a guy the president looked into his background and said, we got to get some fresh eyes on this and straighten out the higher-ups maybe in the FBI if they needed to be straightened out. I was stunned by his stonewalling to the point last week. In fact, the lead editorial in the Wall Street Journal talks about Christopher Wray not answering any questions on Capitol Hill, the most of which is the FISA application that was done before you got there. Did they use Fusion GPS material to get it? When it comes to all these people with their obviously pro-Clinton views showing up at a party, praising Sally Yates, why are you not curious to get to the bottom of this? But instead, it was Stonewall after Stonewall, and I'm wondering if Rod Rosenstein, who could make Christopher Wray come forward with the application to see if they're using this opposition research to take down President Trump or to get information on him, or used it in the past, if he is going to do anything. So that's going to be the question. Will he be forthright? He's also appointed by President Trump.
Well, Chris Wray, what he said was, it's a great question. I cannot answer it because there's an inspector general who's going to come out with, he's going to have the answer to all that stuff. Just hold on, and you'll have the answer.
By the way, that the Wall Street Journal says that is not true. The bottom line is you don't have an inspector general to stop an investigation. You have a judiciary committee who asks you a question, give them the answer.
Yeah, instead of pleading the fifth. Did the dossier lead to surveilling the president? Well, he was candidate Trump at the time. That's the question most people want to know. In the meantime, let's hand it over to Jill. You know, has some headlines for us. Hey, Jill.
That's right. Good Monday morning to you guys. To you at home as well. Let's get straight to a Fox News alert. The hunt intensifying for whoever is behind a string of freeway shootings. Police in Detroit say the same suspect or suspects are playing Russian roulette on Interstate 94, opening fire 4 separate times. One driver was hit in the leg, but is expected to be okay. Authorities are looking for a silver or gray car seen during the shootings. They're also beefing up police presence in that area. While you were sleeping, the most destructive wildfire raging in Southern California just got bigger, scorching 230,000 acres. That's larger than New York City. The massive inferno forcing brand new evacuation orders in Santa Barbara. Hurricane-force winds fueling the flames, making it the 5th largest wildfire in state history. 6 out-of-control blazes still burning across California at this hour, and it could get even worse. There's no rain in the forecast at all this week. New overnight, the U.S. military making a bold show of force, launching missile tracking drills as tensions with North Korea run high. The 2-day joint drill with Japan and South Korea simulate detecting and tracking down potential ballistic missiles in the waters off of the Korean peninsula. Now, this comes less than weeks after the rogue nation fired its longest range missile yet, potentially capable of reaching anywhere in the U.S. The White House calling out Palestinian leaders for refusing to meet with Vice President Pence. They canceled the meetings after the U.S. recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. The Vice President's press secretary saying, quote, "It's unfortunate that the Palestinian Authority is walking away again from an opportunity to discuss the future of the region." Egypt's Coptic Church also rejecting a meeting with the Vice President when he heads overseas later this month. Let's look at your headlines, guys. Back to you. A lot of news this morning.
Yeah,
a lot. All right, thank you.
Well, still ahead, Alabama has the most evangelical voters in the entire country. Will they be able to reconcile their faith in God and vote for Roy Moore? Pastor Robert Jeffress from Dallas, he's here to discuss. Coming up next.
And if football players kneel during the national anthem or put a fist in the air, but no one was there to see it, did it actually happen?
Republican Roy Moore currently in the lead as he denies accusations of sexual misconduct. That lead, according to the Real Clear Politics average.
Question is, will it be enough for evangelicals in that state to put their faith in him, in Roy Moore? Joining us now to weigh in is Fox News contributor Pastor Robert Jeffress. Pastor, thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be with you.
Good to see you. You know, there's not anyone that's going to be for child abuse or all these allegations that all these women have come out against him. As a female, I have a big problem with the fact that he is running. However, I understand the issue of you have to put the party first because his opponent is, most of these Republicans dislike the establishment. They distrust the media. And then his opponent has an extreme view on abortion. How do you justify it as a Christian?
Well, look, for me as a Christian leader, the issue is not about politics or party, it's about morality. And look, Christians above all people have a zero tolerance level for any kind of child abuse. Jesus said it would be better to have a millstone tied around your neck and cast into the sea than to harm a child. But here is the evangelical dilemma in Alabama about this election. Evangelicals can choose Roy Moore, who vehemently denies the very serious allegations of child abuse from 40 years ago, or they can choose Doug Jones, who openly and proudly embraces the most extreme example and kind of child abuse, abortion. Doug Jones has said in interviews that he favors no restrictions on abortion, meaning that if a woman decides she doesn't like the gender of her unborn child, she can get rid of it. Or if in the 30th week of pregnancy she decides she really doesn't want a child, she can kill that child. That is not only horrific, it's barbaric, and I believe it is Doug Jones' horrific, barbaric views on abortion that will cause evangelicals in the end to vote for Roy Moore.
Well, Pastor, I saw an ad from Mr. Jones down in Alabama that ran over the weekend, and he says he is not for late-term abortion, but he is for abortion. And you're saying that evangelicals are going to vote for Roy Moore. They're going to hold their nose, essentially, and vote for Roy Moore over abortion. That's what you're saying, right?
I think that's what it comes down to for many evangelicals. And by the way, Steve, in his interview with Chuck Todd on Meet the Press, he said absolutely no restrictions on abortion. He later on said in an interview that he was only pro-life after the child was born. So I believe he may be backpedaling a little bit, but you know what his real view is. And Steve, look, and Ainsley, the reason this is important, this is not just hypothetical, theoretical talk. The next senator from Alabama is going to play a key role in confirming President Trump's conservative judiciary. These judges will make life and death decisions about children, and that's why those